I woke up to silence. Not the usual morning quiet. Not the soft lull before traffic starts or the muted buzz of a sleeping city, but an absence so complete it felt wrong. It was as if the world had been muted, as if someone had pressed a cosmic pause button. I lay there, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, listening for the usual chorus. The distant maglev whine from the transit line, the throb of delivery drones, the muffled arguments from Mrs. Kowalski and her night shift husband next door. Nothing, just my heartbeat in my ears. I rolled out of bed, muttering, "Power outage, maybe?" The clock on the wall glowed 6:43 a.m. Lights still worked. Water ran in the sink. My apartment was fine. The rest of the world, maybe not. Pulling open the curtain, I froze. New Chicago, a city of 12 million. Looked like a postcard. Streets clear. No maglev cars floating in tight formation. No sidewalk crowds. No hollow ads blaring from skyscrapers. Even the air looked different, like the usual smog haze had been scrubbed away overnight. I shouted, "H-E-Y, anyone?" My voice cracked on the last syllable. No answer. No echo. It was eerie. Sound didn't seem to care the way it should, as if the buildings themselves refused to respond. My first thought wasn't apocalypse. It was hangover. I had been out late coding for a contractor job. Maybe my brain was fried. Then I thought, maybe parade? But then I tried calling my sister. No answer. I tried calling anyone. The hollow screen showed the time, the date, and nothing else. No signal. No feeds. No net. I threw on jeans, boots, a jacket, and bolted down 12 flights of stairs, because the elevator felt like a coffin now. The streets were worse. Cars sat driverless, doors ajar, storefronts open, coffee steaming in cups on cafe tables. The world hadn't gone dark. It just emptied. I walked for blocks, calling out, listening. The city felt like a movie set, dressed and lit, waiting for actors who never showed. Then I saw it, a child's toy bear lying on the sidewalk, its voice chip still working. Every 10 seconds it whimpered, "Mommy, where are you?" until the battery died. My stomach knotted. Something was very, very wrong. I kept walking, because what else do you do if the world ends? You still put one foot in front of the other. You still look for someone. Anyone. Hours passed. The sun climbed. The streets stayed empty. I raided a corner store for bottled water and protein bars. The automatic door worked fine. No alarms went off. No clerk yelled. A guilty part of me liked it. No lines. No checkout. Just take what you need. Freedom tastes good, even in the apocalypse. By late afternoon, panic started to creep in. I hadn't seen a single person. Not even a corpse. Where were they? A bomb doesn't leave shoes standing neatly by the curb. This was surgical. Clean. As darkness fell, I headed back toward my apartment. Without power grids humming, without cars or people, the night was blacker than I'd ever seen. No neon, no light pollution. Just stars, too many stars, cold and sharp above the city skyline. That's when I heard it. Not a voice, not footsteps, just static. Faint, broken, bouncing through the empty streets. I followed the sound to an old emergency terminal half buried in a subway entrance. The screen flickered. A single repeating pattern crackled through the speaker. 3 long bursts. 2 short. 3 long. Over and over. SOS. I ripped open the panel. Traced the signal. It wasn't coming from the terminal. It was coming from higher up, a telecom relay tower on lakefront. Climbing those steel stairs in the dark, I kept imagining someone waiting at the top, some survivor, some explanation. I climbed 50 floors, my breath loud in my ears, pipe wrench clutched like a weapon. But there was no one, just a transmitter running on backup cell power. Its screen glowed with a message that repeated every 30 seconds. If you are human, do not approach population centers. They are not safe. Gather at coordinates 41.8781N, 87.6298W. You're not alone. I froze. My blood went cold. Because those coordinates? They were here. Downtown New Chicago. I've been walking those streets for hours, which meant one of two things. Either this was some kind of automated distress call, or I wasn't as alone as I thought. I climbed back down, pipe wrench slick in my hand. Every alley looked darker. Every broken window felt like an eye staring out. And then I saw movement. Not a person. Too fast, too angular. Something skittered across the intersection below, metal glinting under starlight. It stopped, turned. I swear it looked right at me. I ducked low, heart pounding, breath frozen in my throat. It moved on, vanishing between buildings without a sound. The first day humanity disappeared. I thought I was the last one alive. I was wrong. By nightfall, the city had turned into something out of a dream, not the good kind, without power grids humming, without the steady churn of human life. New Chicago didn't feel like a city anymore. It felt like a monument to something extinct. I holed up in an abandoned subway station that first night, deep underground, where the darkness was thick enough to hide in. My only company was a rusted length of pipe I'd scavenged, my sword against whatever had walked the streets. I didn't sleep much. Every sound echoed like a threat. When dawn came, the silence was worse. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. On the third day, I finally heard something besides my own heartbeat. Not footsteps, not voices, just static, faint like a broken whisper, coming from a rooftop across the street. I scrambled up a fire escape 2 steps at a time. At the top, I found an emergency beacon still running on solar cells. Its tiny red light blinked, its speaker hissing out a looping pattern. 3 long bursts. 2 short. 3 long. Over and over. SOS. I wasn't losing my mind. Someone had set this up. Someone alive. But when I cracked open the panel, I found no one waiting. Just cold electronics, humming along without their makers. The signal wasn't local. It was a relay, stronger than anything I'd heard since the blackout. I followed it across the rooftops to the old lakefront telecom tower. The climb was brutal. 50 flights of open steel stairs, the wind howling hard enough to peel skin. My legs burned, but fear kept me moving. Every shadow looked like it wanted to swallow me. At the top, there was no person, no welcoming committee, just a transmitter locked in a steel cage, still alive on backup cells. Its tiny screen pulsed with a repeating message. If you are human, do not approach population centers. They are not safe. Gather at coordinates 41.8781 and 87.6298W. You are not alone. I stared at the numbers until they burned into my vision. Those coordinates were here, downtown New Chicago, which didn't make sense. I've been walking these streets for 2 days, screaming myself hoarse. If survivors were nearby, they'd have heard me, unless they didn't want to be found. As I descended, I started noticing details I'd missed before. Scrapes on the pavement, like something heavy had been dragged. A burnt-out hollow screen with claw marks across it, and not the kind any human hand could make. The thing I'd seen the night before hadn't been a hallucination. It had been real, and it wasn't alone. That night, I heard them clearly for the first time. I'd taken shelter in a half-collapsed parking garage, high enough to see down Michigan Avenue. The wind carried every sound straight to me, and there it was, a noise like nothing I'd ever heard, jagged metallic, like steel teeth tearing glass. The sound echoed between skyscrapers, followed by sharp clicking, like claws on concrete. My whole body went cold. I peeked over the edge of the garage and saw them, machines, but not any design I recognized. They weren't military drones or service bots. These things looked cobbled together, insectal, too fast, too precise. They moved in swarms, searching the streets, dragging away anything human they could find. I watched one scoop up a pile of coats left outside a coffee shop. No blood, no bodies, just clothing sucked into its grinding maw. Another skittered up the side of the glass tower like a spider, its legs puncturing steel as if it were paper. My breath caught when one passed under a street lamp, and I saw its face. A stretched human face, pale and fresh, plastered over its sensor array like a mask. I nearly threw up. Whatever had happened to humanity, these things were the cleanup crew, erasing us, scrubbing every trace of human life from the planet, like we'd never existed. And if they saw me, I'd be next. I stayed hidden until dawn. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard those claws on concrete, those mechanical shrieks bouncing off skyscraper walls. When morning came, I headed toward the coordinates in the message. If there were survivors in this city, I had to find them fast, before the machines did. Traveling by daylight wasn't safer. The streets were open, exposed. I moved building to building, ducking into alleys whenever I heard that grinding sound in the distance. The air smelled different now, metallic, burnt, like ozone after a lightning strike. Halfway there, I spotted one of the machines up close. It was smaller than the others, maybe waist-high, crawling along the gutter with twitching, segmented legs. It wasn't hunting. It was sniffing, scanning the ground with strange humming pulse. I froze behind a trash bin, barely breathing. The thing paused, its sensor head swiveling in my direction. For one long, endless moment I was sure had me. Then it moved on, scraping along the curb, leaving deep gouges in the asphalt. They weren't just searching. They were tracking. When I finally reached the coordinates, a long-abandoned telecom substation buried beneath Union Station, I found the door sealed tight. But someone had been here. Fresh boot prints in the dust. A faint light glowing beneath the cracks. I pounded on the door, pipe wrench ready. Open up. I'm human. I'm not one of them. Nothing. Just silence. Then, slowly, the door unsealed with a hydraulic hiss. A single, bloodshot, I peered out through the crack. Get in, a voice rasped. Before they see you. I slipped inside, heart racing, and the door slammed shut behind me. I wasn't alone after all. The door slammed shut behind me, the lock sliding into place with a heavy clunk. For the first time in days, I wasn't staring into the open void of an empty city. I was staring into a bunker lit by flickering strips of emergency LEDs and occupied by 5 pairs of very human eyes. Holy hell, I muttered, gripping my pipe wrench like a child clinging to a teddy bear. You're alive. So are you, said the man at the door, mid-40s, heavy-set, ex-cop by the look of him. He lowered a battered shotgun, but didn't take his finger off the trigger. Name. Elias, I said. Elias Cross. He nodded stiffly. Reyes. Then he jerked his chin toward the others. That's Claire, Mason, and the twins, Harper and Holt. You made it 3 days out there alone. Yeah, I said, still breathless. You're the ones broadcasting the signal? Reyes shook his head. No, that's automated. Been running since the scramble. The scramble? I asked. Claire, a med student with hollow eyes and trembling hands, spoke up when everyone vanished. We don't know how. Just 1 second they were there, next second, she snapped her fingers. Gone, like they were pulled out of reality. Mason, a freighter pilot who looked like he'd wrestled with death and barely won, leaned against the wall. We were lucky. I was mid-transit in a shielded cockpit. These two, he gestured to the twins, were working under heavy magnetic dampers in an engineering lab. Claire was in an underground ER. And Reyes here? Drinking off duty in a concrete basement bar. Hell of a place to be sober, Reyes said dryly. My brain spun. So it's not just New Chicago? No, Harper said. It's everywhere. Every major city's dark. No broadcasts except that beacon. Holt, her brother, added grimly. And it's not just that people are gone. Something's cleaning up after them. I didn't have to ask what. I'd seen them. The angular machines stalking the streets. the things with human faces stretched across their sensors. "They're hunting," I said. Reyes shook his head. "No, hunting's personal. This is sanitation. They're erasing us like graffiti off a wall." We sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the hum of recycled air and the occasional rattle of pipes. "Where are they coming from?" I asked finally. "We don't know," Holt said. "They're not ours. No Earth design, no Earth code. My guess? Somebody flipped a switch and told them to purge the planet." Mason's jaw tightened. "And they're damn good at it." Claire whispered. "I saw one up close. It was taking samples. Skin, hair, teeth, like it was collecting us piece by piece." A cold shiver crept up my spine. Why? Why erase us like this? Why not just kill whoever's left? No one answered. That night, we heard them outside. The bunker was buried under Union Station, shielded by old commuter tunnels. But even down here, the noise carried. Metallic shrieks bouncing off the walls, claws raking pavement. That sickening hum as their scanners swept the streets above. Reyes, kill the lights. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Through a narrow crack in the ceiling, I saw one of the machines crawling along the tracks. Its body was a tangle of carbon struts and stolen parts, its legs ending in hooked talons that sparked as they scraped the rail. It stopped directly above us. For a full minute, no one breathed. Then it moved on, clicking and humming, vanishing into the night. "They're mapping," Harper said after it was gone. "Grid by grid. They'll find this place eventually." "Then we don't stay," Reyes said flatly. "Go where?" I asked. Mason leaned forward. "Up. There's a ship in orbit, still human, still alive. They've been transmitting coordinates. We get to the shuttle bay near Lake Michigan, launch up, and pray someone's listening." "Big risk," Reyes muttered. "Bigger risk staying here," Holt countered. I swallowed hard. "What about the signal warning us away from population centers?" Reyes looked me dead in the eye. "Kid, this whole city is a death trap. Whatever's out there, it's not just sweeping. It's hunting now. We leave at dawn. We eat pack light, water, rations, ammo, mostly Rhea's old shotgun, and whatever I could swing with my wrench." Claire kept a med kit strapped to her back. Mason studied an old transit map by flashlight, tracing a route that avoided major streets. As we prepared, Harper mentioned something that stuck with me. "You know Project Echo?" she asked. I shook my head. "It was experimental," she said. "Classified tech. A failsafe. Some of us were working on it when the scramble happened. It was supposed to protect humanity, a resonance device. But it wasn't ready. Whatever hit us triggered it too early." "Triggered what?" I asked. She just shook her head. "You'll see." We slipped out at first light, hugging the shadows. The city was worse than before. Entire streets gutted, buildings hollowed out like someone had scooped their insides clean. Every few blocks, we saw piles of ash, not human remains, just clothing and personal items shredded to dust. Then, near the waterfront, we saw one of them up close. It was twice the size of the others, a nightmare on 8 segmented legs. Its core glowed faintly blue, pulsing with each movement. When it turned, we froze, because mounted on its front was a human skull, still fresh, wired directly into its sensor rig. Claire muffled a scream with her sleeve. Reyes raised a shotgun, but Mason grabbed his arm. "No shots. Not unless you want the whole swarm on us." We ducked into an alley as it passed, holding our breath. The thing paused, its sensors sweeping the air. For a terrible moment, I thought it smelled us. Then it scuttled away, moving with that same insect-like precision. I whispered, "How do you fight something like that?" Reyes answered coldly, "You don't. You run." By sunset, we reached the outskirts of the shuttle bay, a massive hangar buried in concrete near the lake, still running on emergency power. But the machines were here too, dozens of them, crawling over the access road, dragging debris into neat piles, cutting apart anything human made for parts. Tomorrow, Mason said, we wait till dark. Less patrols. Less patrols doesn't mean no patrols, Reyes grunted. That night, crammed into the upper floor in an abandoned office, I lay awake listening to the city breathe. Not with life, but with machines. Somewhere out there, something huge moved in the water, its shape glinting in moonlight, scanning the shoreline with a cold, sweeping beam. Whatever had erased humanity wasn't finished, and tomorrow we'd have to walk straight through its teeth. Silence is supposed to be comforting after battle. No screaming alarms. No rattling bulkheads. No crackle of laser fire. But aboard the Dauntless, silence meant something else. It meant waiting. It meant doubt. And worse, it meant we were running out of options. The ship was a patchwork of scars. Hull plates welded at odd angles. Corridors rerouted like a labyrinth to bypass shattered sections. Even the air smelled wrong, a mix of burnt circuitry and recycled desperation. The laughter of the alien tribunal still rang in my ears, like an echo I couldn't silence. I sat in the war room, staring at a hollow map that was more red than blue. Human colonies, crossed out, defense stations, offline, fleets gone. We weren't losing the war. We had already lost it. Captain. Sergeant Voss's voice cut through the haze. He was one of the few who didn't flinch when he looked at me, maybe because he was just as broken. His cybernetic I whirred softly as he scanned the map. Intel reports another convoy raided near Titan Gate. Same pattern. Same signature. I didn't have to ask whose signature. The Corva raiders had been using our own captured tech against us. Something the Council said was impossible. Another human lie, neatly packaged in a tribunal chamber to keep the galaxy calm. How many survivors? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Voss shook his head. None reported. But he hesitated. He never hesitated. One of our deep-range scouts picked up something strange. An energy spike near Varela Nebula. Same readings we saw during your incident. My incident. That's what they called it, like it was a malfunction, not a miracle, when the tribunal mocked humanity. Something inside me snapped, and for 30 seconds I wasn't myself. Reflexes faster than thought. Strength beyond training. Vision sharp enough to read alien insignias from half a click away. I shouldn't be alive. And yet, here I was, breathing proof that humans were evolving in ways the rest of the galaxy didn't understand. Show me. The hollow shifted, displaying erratic energy pulses. The pattern wasn't random, it was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. And buried under the interference was a faint transmission, distorted, almost human. This isn't Corva tech, Voss said. Could be something new, something old. Or a trap, I said. But traps could be sprung both ways. I called a briefing. My officers filed in, lean from hunger and sleepless nights. No one asked why we were still fighting. They already knew the answer. We weren't defending Earth anymore. Earth was ash. We were defending the idea of humanity. Mission simple. I told them, we're going into the nebula to find out what's broadcasting the signal. If it's Corva, we cut their throats. If it's not, I let the silence finish for me. If it's not, we hope it's something we can use. Lieutenant Arya frowned. Captain, with respect, we're walking blind. No long-range scans in there. No comms once we're inside. Good, I said. They won't see us coming either. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. That's what I hated about command. It wasn't courage you demanded of people. It was faith. And faith was harder to earn than loyalty. Hours later, the Dauntless slipped into Varela Nebula. Gas clouds swirled like bruises on the void, colors shifting between deep violet and bloody crimson. Static clawed at our instruments, reducing precision to guesswork. Then we saw it, a derelict, floating like a ghost ship, its hull burned but intact. Not human, not Corva, Its architecture curved like bone and glowed faintly as if it were alive. "Getting faint life signs," Arya whispered, as though speaking too loud might wake it. I led the boarding party personally. Voss glared at me for it. But I wasn't about to send people into the unknown without going first. The interior was worse than the outside. Corridors lined with organic plating. Air that smelled sterile and ancient. And in the central chamber, a stasis pod. And inside, a humanoid figure. Not fully alien, not fully human. Its chest rose and fell slowly, like it was waiting for permission to wake. "Captain," Arya's voice shook. "What the hell are we looking at?" I stared at the thing in the pod, a sinking feeling gnawing at me, because I'd seen its face before in a tribunal archive, a war criminal from Earth's past, one we'd buried centuries ago, and it was smiling, even in stasis. The universe doesn't scream when it dies. It exhales. We stood aboard the Resolute Dawn, staring at the star map as entire systems blinked out, one by one, like candles snuffed by invisible fingers. The Zytherians had no idea what was happening, but we did. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't an attack. It was a message. Status report. I ordered, though my voice barely felt like my own. Lieutenant Eris didn't look away from her console. Confirmed stellar collapses in Procyon, Talvos, and 3 minor colonies. Every system we warned them about. I leaned forward, heart pounding. Casualties. Minimal, because there's no one left alive in those sectors to kill. The bridge went silent. Not out of respect. Out of fear. We've been fighting the Zytherians for 3 bloody years. But this wasn't our doing. Something else was moving through the galaxy, and it was killing stars. The first real clue came from the Chiron Array. A deep space listening post-humans had jury-rigged from salvaged Zytherian tech. Its final transmission wasn't words. It was music, a low, metallic pulse that thrummed like a dying heart, repeated on every frequency. Then nothing. "Could be a distress call," Eris muttered. "Could be bait." I shook my head. "It's neither. It's a countdown." The sound followed us, echoing through every intercepted transmission. Even the Zytherian High Command, arrogant beyond reason, couldn't hide their fear. Their war fleet slowed. Patrols vanished. They were preparing for something worse than humanity. We needed answers, and fast. I made the call to rendezvous with Admiral Kessler's task force. She'd always been the only one high up who trusted me, even after I'd gone rogue to save a colony they'd written off as expendable. Her flagship, the Iron Resolve, was waiting at the edge of neutral space. Kessler didn't waste time on formalities. "You've seen the maps," she said, voice sharp as plasma steel. "This isn't your doing. It isn't theirs either. Something's eating stars." "Eating?" I asked. "That's what our scientists call it. A wave of gravitational inversion. Like something's folding space around suns until they wink out. And it's moving toward the Zytherian core worlds." I couldn't help a bitter smile. The Predators finally met something hungrier than them. "This isn't funny, Commander," Kessler snapped. "If this thing keeps moving, humanity is next. The Zytherians are terrified, and terrified enemies make stupid decisions." She was right. We weren't safe because someone else was dying first. We were sitting on the same track, waiting for the train to arrive. Then came the unthinkable. The Zytherians called for a ceasefire, not an ambush, not a ploy, a plea. They opened a secure channel, broadcasting in human language, their guttural tones breaking as they formed unfamiliar words. "Human fleet. Cease hostilities. Enemy greater than war. We require alliance." On our bridge, no one spoke for a long moment. Then Lieutenant Eris whispered, "They sound scared." I thought about the burned cities, about the civilians dragged from their homes, about the laughter of Zytherian soldiers as they executed prisoners. And now they wanted peace because something was hunting them. "Put them through," I said. We met aboard a neutral station, half wrecked from an earlier battle. The Zytherian warlord was huge, armored from head to toe, his breathing ragged through a damaged respirator. I'd expected threats. I got desperation. "You humans fight well," he rasped, "but fight wrong enemy. Dark wave comes. It does not stop. Why ask us for help?" I asked coldly, "You've spent years trying to wipe us out." "Because," the warlord said, his black eyes unblinking, "your kind refuses to die quiet. We need that." That was the moment it hit me. The galaxy didn't fear humanity because of our weapons. It feared us because we wouldn't surrender, even when we were broken. And now, even our worst enemies needed that madness. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, I stared at the map again. The dark wave was accelerating, wiping out systems in hours instead of days. "Orders, Commander?" Eris asked. I swallowed hard. "We find where it's coming from. And if we can't stop it..." I let the thought hang in the air like an executioner's blade. Kessler's last words echoed in my ears. If humanity doesn't figure this out first, there won't be anyone left to bury the stars. For the first time since the war began, I realized something terrifying. This fight wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And we'd have to survive together. They thought the war had already broken us. They thought they were chasing stragglers, remnants of a species too stubborn to surrender. But this wasn't retreat. It was positioning. The jump drive hummed under my boots, its vibration familiar now, like a second heartbeat. The Eidolon was a coffin-colored dagger against the void, running silent. We were headed into Zar Prime, their central star system, where their fleets gather like sharks in dark water. I'd memorized every orbital path, every patrol rotation, every energy spike from their fusion arrays. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't playing for territory anymore. This wasn't about winning a battle. This was about making them afraid of the dark. I looked around the dimly lit cabin. Ortega was leaning against a bulkhead, calibrating his rail rifle, its magnetic coils glowing faintly. Lieutenant Harlow stood at the navigation console, eyes fixed on the star map, like she could will us invisible. And in the co-pilot seat sat Kian, the alien defector who still wore his old officer's insignia tucked away in his jacket. "You're sure about this?" Kian asked, his voice low, almost too calm. "Do you understand what happens if you do this?" I didn't answer immediately. I checked the reactor status, then reached for my helmet. The visor hissed as it sealed around my head, the HUD flickering online. "If we don't do this," I said, "they'll haunt humanity until there's nothing left but our bones drifting through space." Harlow turned toward me. "And if we succeed, then there won't be enough of them left to keep hunting," I said flatly. We dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Zar Prime sun burned a pale yellow, its light spilling across 12 planets and a dozen military shipyards. Even at this distance, the swarm of warships looked like a cloud of steel gnats orbiting a flame. But their focus wasn't on us. They were looking outward, convinced the human fleets were still scattered and afraid. They never expected a single ship to come straight into the lion's den. "Masking engaged," Ortega said. The ship's signature vanished beneath layers of stolen alien tech and jury-rigged Earth ingenuity. We drifted closer. The plan was insane. Even Kian had admitted it. The weapon we'd stolen, no, rebuilt, was designed to destabilize a star's magnetic field. Not destroy it, not yet. Just make it sick, make it dim, make it afraid. I set the coordinates. "Ortega, Harlow, get ready to burn hard once we drop the package. And if they spot us..." Harlow asked. "They won't," I said. "They're still laughing at us, remember?" We slid past the outer defense perimeter. No alarms, no pings, just the steady pulse of the Tsar sun on the scanners. When we reached weapons range, I armed the payload. It wasn't large, just a cylinder the size of a human coffin, glowing faint blue. Inside, quantum filaments wound tighter than any coil on Earth, humming with stolen Tsar energy. Kian watched me carefully. "Once you do this, there's no going back. You'll change the rules of this war forever. I almost smiled. That's the point. The payload detached with a soft clunk. Thrusters nudged it toward the star, then cut out, letting gravity do the rest. It fell silent and dark, like a shard of night cutting into daylight. A minute passed, then two, then the sun flickered. Not much at first, just a hiccup of light, but every ship in orbit noticed. Energy readings spiked across our screens as Tsar patrol craft scrambled, confused. A ripple spread through the star's corona, like it was gasping. Then came the dimming. The sunlight turned orange, then blood red, as if someone had drawn a curtain across it. They'll think it's a stellar anomaly, Kian muttered, but even he didn't sound convinced. No, I said. They'll know. They'll know it's us. As we powered away on silent burn, I imagined the panic spreading through their command channels. I imagined the laughter finally dying in their throats. Because this was only the first system, only the first sun. By the time they figured out what we'd done, by the time they traced the signature back to humanity, it would be too late. We weren't fighting their fleets anymore. We were fighting their sky. And this time, the darkness was on our side. They said Earth was broken. They said humanity was weak. They said our fire had gone out. They were wrong. The armada above Karth Prime cracked under our guns. Their mighty war stations burned, hollowed by rail slugs and antimatter bursts. I stood on the bridge of Resolute, staring to the forward viewport as the last beacon of the Zyre Dominion's empire flickered and died. Admiral, Commander Ortiz said, voice tight, they're transmitting surrender protocols. Put it on, I said. My throat was dry, but I didn't let it show. After years of blood and ash, I would hear them kneel. The Zyre Chancellor appeared, his regal tendrils bound in gold, his voice trembling. Human, you have shattered every defense. You have broken every law of war. Even your own allies begged you to stop. What do you want from us? I leaned forward, every scar on my face a reminder of what they'd done. You laughed at us, I said. You thought Earth would beg. You thought we'd forget. He hesitated. We miscalculated. No, I said softly. You underestimated. Around us, the fleet columns crackled with cheering. Earth ships, Martian gunboats, Jovian carriers, even the rogue mercenary flotillas who joined us when the Zyre burned Luna Base. Every human-born weapon we had, united in one purpose. Here's what happens now. I continued. Your fleets disarm. Your colonies stand down. Your war machine dies, piece by piece. And every slave you ever took goes free. And if we refuse, the Chancellor asked. I let the silence draw out. The crew looked at me. They knew I meant it. If you refuse, I said at last, you won't have an empire left to rule. The Chancellor wilted, his gold binding sagging. We will comply. The transmission cut. Ortiz exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. We did it, she whispered. I shook my head. No, we survived. That's all. Out the viewport, the fires of Karth Prime glimmered like distant lightning. A world that had laughed at humanity now burned because of it. I should have felt victory. All I felt was cold. Years of war had made us monsters. Because monsters were what we needed to win. They thought our compassion was weakness. They were wrong. We turned our grief into steel. A message blinked on my console. Priority signal. EarthGov. The face of President DaCosta appeared pale and drawn. Admiral Kane. The Zyre surrender is confirmed. The war is over. I almost laughed. Over? No. War doesn't end when the guns fall silent. It ends when the last grave is dug. When the last refugee comes home. When the last laugh dies in the throat of those who mocked us. Understood, I said. The channel closed. The bridge crew waited for orders. Set course for Sol. I said at last, let's go home. As the stars shifted in the viewport and the fleet turned toward Earth, I thought of the Zyre's last words, spoken not in defiance, but in awe. Humans cannot be conquered. No, We can't. We aren't the strongest. We aren't the fastest. We aren't the most advanced. But we never stop. And when the galaxy laughs at us, we make damn sure we laugh last.